Xie Yu is a 20-year-old guy who is good at playing computer games, but success in the virtual world does not guarantee it in the real world. Due to problems in his studies, the protagonist has to deal with a phone conversation, during which he touches on a painful topic concerning a girl whose death he blames himself for. When the phone call interrupts his memories, Xie Yu gets mad, thinking that it's his recent interlocutor trying to get in touch with him again. And what a surprise caught up with the guy when the display showed a message about his participation in the game, which he sees for the first time. The low level of the hero is disappointing, but the player's account has points, for which, as it is explained, you can buy anything. Not believing in such an easy way to get what he wants, Xie Yu skeptically suggests the program to exchange everything for money. The outcome led the guy in shock. On his account appeared a tidy sum, and as it turned out, very timely. At the same moment, a knock sounded at the door. It was an angry landlady of the room, which the protagonist owed for rent. Relying on a recent transfer from the game, the debtor paid the financial tail still and secured a place to live for the future. The transfer of money was successful, which made the guy believe in such fabulous conditions. In his head, the idea arises to exchange the points for the resurrection of that very girl, but alas, it did not work out. His account is already zero, and the requirement for such a difficult task is to collect 1 billion points. Xie Yu is not afraid of such a condition, because now he has a goal and motivation, which is driven by sadness for an important person. Soon the protagonist learns that rare tasks are available, for the execution of which you can earn points. He can't wait to find out what their essence is, but the eagerness to find out his tasks did not justify. Now the guy has to collect garbage, which puts him in awkward situations and makes him look bad. Xie Yu has to admit that he underestimated the game, because his labor gives not great results. But he is ready to do anything to save Yui. For the successful completion of 50 tasks, the young man receives a lottery ballet, but does not dare to use it immediately for the sake of improving the received thing. Concerned about finding other ways to get points, the protagonist does not notice the banana skin on the floor, which caused an uncomfortable situation. Slipping on the fruit shell, the guy crashes into someone. This person is a beautiful girl, and the place where Xie Yu flew into is the bust of a beautiful lady. Such an embarrassment could not help but cause embarrassment to the protagonist. Of course, not every day has to be so close to a woman's breasts, not the most handsome guys. This is noticed by the owner of the body part, and it seems that she is not at all puzzled by this situation. The girl does not apologize and offers to compensate for her initially unplanned participation in all this. How could a young guy make it up to a pretty girl? By giving up all his points, of course. This comes as a shock and misunderstanding. Is she really playing this game too? While Xie Yu is trying to realize everything, Sis, as the girl calls herself, imposes the effect of urban separation, the consequences of which are still unknown to the former. Standing with her back to her newfound opponent and being inattentive was a bad decision. The representative of the weaker sex took advantage of this oversight of the protagonist and struck not a weak blow. The young lady took away the opportunity to use her left hand in the fight. Impacting physically, she did not spare on verbal taunts. The only way out for a guy unable to defend himself is to negotiate. This arrangement does not suit the girl, but as a sign of goodwill, her sister decided to explain what is going on. The real essence of this game, earning points by killing others. And the tasks and occupation for morons. Xie Yu cannot believe what he got involved in. The young lady suggests just give up and do not resist his fatal outcome. But the protagonist does not want to give up. He cannot just afford it, so he is content to flee. And oh wonder, a living soul in the neighborhood. Trying to ask for help from the delivery guy, the guy wants to touch the only chance to save himself, but in vain. Xie Yu comes through. This surprises and puts him in a stupor, but there is no time to think, the danger is near. The girl finally explains that this is the effect that was used earlier. The city divide is a space where only players can be in. The prey is almost caught. One powerful blow to the body, and the blades go through the guy's body. Game over, and the lady is sure it is. It is hardly possible to survive with a serious heart wound. The protagonist is not ready to accept such a death. After all, he just found a way to get Yui back. In a flash, a message arrived on his phone, making him think of that lottery ticket. Not all is lost yet. The roulette has been activated. The only chance to stay alive. Such a desperate belief in the power of luck made the girl have fun. Xie Yu can't hear her. All he has to do is believe in fortune. The thanks for trying sector was the final blow to the guy's hope. It's the end. Resignation is the only solution. But fate decided otherwise. The arrow moved one position. Special equipment. Already enjoying the victory of the young lady was taken aback. She had never heard of it. But there is no time to understand. The victim's body is recovering. It is necessary to finish everything as quickly as possible. The girl is defeated. A huge beam prevents her from making the final blow. She senses that this beam is not good. And for good reason. In an instant, a wave was heading in her direction. But she still managed to dodge it. This is the power of special equipment. Instead of the beam was already a cloud of dust. And from it appeared Xie Yu. Recently, he was lying in death. But now stands firmly on his feet and in his hands holding a huge sword. Despite the fact that the girl was annoyed that a beginner could handle such a weapon, she was amused by the main character's loud declarations that he could defeat her. The ringing laughter of the rival made the guy nervous, and the opponent was already ready to attack. But the young man stood on his own, convincing that all the same victory will be for him. Such words only provoked the young lady. She rushed to Xie Yu in readiness for the second time to bring him to the light. But the newly minted fighter was not a bad fighter either. He tried to repel the attack. But he did not take into account one thing. The speed of the opponent's movement exceeds his speed. To control such a large sword with a small level of strength is undoubtedly difficult. But being a strong opponent, having the ability to move quickly is not difficult to set bombs on the opponent. And 2-2 explosion. The guy is barely standing on his feet. And Sis is ready for the final blow, a fatal blow. But what about Yui? Xie Yu can't die like this. He has to do something. The system connected the body to the sword and clearly made the protagonist's physical form more suitable for battle. One strike. In front of the girl is an improved fighter. He has excellent sword control and his speed is increased by times. But what made him like this? The guy easily dispenses with the opponent. Just a couple of powerful blows made the lady fight back, not giving even a chance to attack. The lady's misunderstanding as to why he has so much strength and how such a progress in physical form is possible in such a short period of time. The answer is short. Xie Yu gave his life to the sword. This did not satisfy the opponent. She could not admit that he had become more powerful. But alas, the fight was coming to an end. After the attacks, the sword energy spread throughout the area. The only chance for the girl to stay alive is to beg for mercy and offer everything what there is, up to herself. But he is driven by purpose. No forgiveness. No bargains. The wreckage of the building has nailed down to the recently endangered subject. And the goal remains the same. Yui. Suddenly, a girl stands in front of Xie Yu, calling out to him. She is Yui and she is clearly in a bad mood, saying that she is disappointed in the guy because he is not the same as before. The girl leaves and a car speeds off to meet her. The protagonist wakes up in fear of what he has seen. He realizes that it is all just a vision, but he is not happy about it. Xie Yu gets a call from Wang Bo, who aggressively reminds him that he will be expelled if he doesn't show up for school. The boy yells at Wang Bo, but his fervor is stopped by a new notification from the game, which is an official confirmation that he has defeated that girl. After such news, the protagonist calmed down and decides to still head to the educational institution. Since he was not able to track the location during the battle, he realizes that Xie Yu is lost and has to look for the way. During the search, he realizes that everyone is looking at him strangely, and he is surprised to see a handsome man standing in front of him in the reflection of the window. The shocked guy couldn't understand where all the extra kilograms had gone. And a new notification from the game made it clear that all his fat was used as energy in the sword overload mode. But the next time this mode is used again, a large amount of energy is needed, or else the fighter could be in danger of death. But Xie Yu has another problem. He needs new clothes to attend school. It's very convenient that he can buy them with his points, but he needs to save his points, so he takes the cheapest clothes. Coming to school, the protagonist did not go unnoticed, and naturally, the guy cannot help but be pleased with such increased attention to his person. The young man sits down on a bench and looks at his own panel of properties. Here everything is like in a real game, and Xie Yu first of all decides to pump useful characteristics. But it's strange because the points have not added. If you think about it, the player defeated that opponent but didn't kill her, that's the reason. The guy decides to look at his weapon. After reading the skills, he comes to the conclusion that the energy that can be consumed in overload mode is not only his life energy. But it seems that overload mode is not as simple as described in the skill, so this power will have to be experimented with some more. Involvement in familiarizing himself with the sword skill is interrupted by a ball coming from the side of the sports court. The basketball player asks Xie Yu to serve, but the other one slightly miscalculates his strength and throws the sports equipment and punches the basketball backboard. The protagonist did not expect that he is capable of orphan strong throw, so he decides to run away from responsibility for the spoiled object. Distracts the young man with the notification that the dungeon is about to open, so the first takes to look for it. The directions lead through the school corridors and eventually stop near the girls' restroom. The boy feels awkward, but he calms himself with the fact that it was the game that brought him here. He didn't come here of his own volition. Once inside, you can relax. There is no one. The arrows point to one of the stalls. Thinking that this is just the entrance to the dungeon, Xie Yu unceremoniously opens the door, and inside is a man. The girl, caught off guard, of course thinks it's just a pervert, and the only thing that seems right is to teach him a lesson. The boy tries to explain himself, but he is not heard, and a weapon appears in the hands of the young maiden, which she uses to kill the young man. She is clearly not in the mood to resolve the misunderstanding peacefully. Xie Yu tries to tell the girl that it's just a misunderstanding, but what's the point of listening to the pervert's excuses? It would seem that the situation is saved by the notification that the players have found each other, but the girl does not hold back. But since it's not just a peaceful person, the guy can also quietly enter the battle. The enemy thinks that the main character's goal is to defeat her, and Xie Yu once again tries to find answers to all questions and once again remains unheard. The players grapple. The girl turned out to be very strong, and the only thing that solves the situation is the opening of the dungeon. Plunging inside, the opponents find themselves in another awkward situation. The guy's hand was on the opponent's chest, because of which he had to get a blow with his fist on his face. Another conflict is in second place compared to what is around the heroes. They stand in the middle of monsters, and the dungeon is modeled after their school. The boy is nervous. It is the first time he is really surrounded by so many ill-wishers. The girl finally realizes what Xie Yu was trying to prove to her. He was just looking for the entrance to the dungeon, and she is also surprised that a newcomer has the courage to venture into the dungeon. The protagonist didn't like the fact that the one who is a beginner is so dismissive of almost the same level. On his indignation, justification is that the partner in the situation still has more experience. Therefore, she instructs him to keep his eyes open and explains how to know if you can calmly engage in a battle with a monster to definitely defeat it. So far, Xie Yu doesn't have enough strength to fight the mobs in this dungeon. The girl, on the other hand, already has her hands full, changing her appearance to clash with monsters. She effortlessly cleaves the air with weapons, destroying crowds of opponents. After applying a skill that surprises the guy. From the back, one of the enemies tries to pounce on her, from which she is saved by her newfound partner. Instead of gratitude, the young lady claims that she would have nothing, although she recognizes that the guy is not so bad. Realizing that now they will have to work together, the heroes get acquainted. The girl's name is Xie Yu, but it seems that Xie Yu's name is familiar to her, so she decides it's a coincidence. The young lady invites the guy to the team. Now she is ready to help him, because he is too weak. Despite the fact that the protagonist takes the position of commander, Xie Yu warns that she is ready to protect her partner only if she does not get into trouble, otherwise the other will die. Xie Yu notices the bad character of his companion, but now it does not matter much, because now they are a team. The more advanced girl goes ahead, masterfully controlling the weapon, and the second player helps from behind. In the course of the battle, the hero raises his level, beginning to better understand the mechanics. He pumps his power. Now the enemies are no longer a threat to him, and he can fight on par with Xie Yu. After defeating the small mobs, the boss room is in front of him. Suddenly, the guy is touched by a slime, which is not the most pleasant substance. The slime usually parasitizes the body of the boss to get nutrients, but has no attack power. The heroes are not going to waste their time on it, as something more serious awaits them. Once inside, they encounter a bone dragon that is much stronger, but Shen Yunhao is not intimidated by this. She takes the whole case on herself and rushes forward for what seems to be easy prey. Masterfully dodging the monster's attacks, the girl brings her weapon up. One strike, and the boss is split in half. What power! It's so strong it thrills her partner. But from the hole in the ceiling, clots of slime that have already been seen before entering the room begin to pour out. These creatures penetrate the space between the two parts of the dragon, healing it, gluing it together as one. Xie Yu tries to warn the jubilant victor of the danger, but it seems too late. The boss releases a bunch of acid clots. One of them penetrates Shen Yunhao. The injury doesn't kill the girl, but it does keep her from moving. The boss is ready to finish her off at that very moment, but Xie Yu doesn't let him do that. He picks the girl up in his arms and carries her to the wall, to a safer place. This monster doesn't seem like the kind of monster that should be appropriate for the level of the dungeon, too strong. In such dungeons can often get more advanced bosses, but no one expected that, so lucky it is our heroes. The guy decides to fight further, but his partner discourages him, arguing that he cannot win, he is not strong enough. Then Xie Yu decides that they can just run away. The protagonist starts to distract the monster by running away, but unfortunately the plan goes wrong and the boss doesn't chase the guy. Instead of playing catch-up, the mob releases a large amount of acid, which injured Shen Yunhao earlier. Xie Yu manages to cover himself with his sword, but immediately the girl watching warns of danger from behind. The monster tried to devour the opponent, but the fighter was not confused. Putting his foot on the lower jaw and supporting the upper one with his sword, he was able to prevent the dragon's mouth from slamming shut. The guy managed to dodge. Boss, raising his back paw, struck the floor. The wave went towards Xie Yu, knocking him back and damaging his organs. No time to recover. The monster attacks again. The guy decides to reconcile the same reception to put a block, but this time the dragon grazes the shoulder of the protagonist with a fang. The fighter manages to get out of the jaws for the second time, but not without consequences. Health is less and less. Now the boss doesn't give him a second to recover. He easily throws Xie Yu into the wall with his paw. Shen Yunhao is worried about his partner, and for good reason. His HP is at a minimum. The dragon releases the same acid. The guy manages to cover himself with his sword, but he can't last forever like this. He has to do something, and an idea comes to his mind. At the same moment, the monster is heading towards the protagonist. Shen Yunhao warns that Xie Yu won't be able to withstand another attack, but his injured partner reassures him that the boss won't be able to do any more damage. The guy effortlessly dodges the enemy. From such filigree actions, even the more experienced girl was shocked. Another attack on the area and she could not hurt the fighter. It seems he already knows exactly how to defeat the monster. A jump and Xie Yu attacks directly into the open mouth. There are shifts on the dragon's health bar. The guy managed to deal damage. The hero has grasped the mechanics. Now he dodges the enemy's frequent attacks and deals damage at the most opportune moment when he has the most time to do so. It works. He manages to strike the boss. This amazes Shen Yunhao. She doesn't understand how Xie Yu managed it. The other explains that he just memorized the combinations and consequences of the boss's attacks. The guy admits that the game is sneaky, but he's not a bad guy either. 2 more hours pass in the battle. The dragon's HP is almost empty, which is a blessing. The battle will be over soon, but suddenly something happens. Xie Yu and Shen Yunhao can't help but be alarmed because victory is almost in their hands. The monster enters the rage stage. Its attack power has increased. It seems that a new problem awaits the heroes. The monster has become stronger and its attacks have changed, so they need to understand their order again. Xie Yu manages to dodge, but he won't last long, and the slightest mistake can cost his life. The boss changes his target. Now he is heading towards the helpless Shen Yunhao, who still doesn't understand how a rank F dungeon can have such a strong opponent. Seemingly the girl has resigned herself to the fact that this is her end. She closes her eyes, but nothing happens. Lifting her eyelids, she sees Xie Yu in front of her, who took the piercing blow on himself. He did so because Shen Yunhao was similar to Yui. It's not the end. Despite the wounded heart, the guy is going to apply the reboot mode. The companion has never seen such a thing. She doesn't realize what's going on. Blue rays burst out from the wound site. They destroy the dragon claw inside the guy's body. The reboot progresses, and Xie Yu becomes much stronger. All Shen Yunhao can do is to watch with held breath. Now the fight has taken a new level. The boss is ready to attack with renewed vigor, but his opponent has already improved as well. The monster directs a large amount of acid at the protagonist, but the other applies one clear, strong blow. The girl is stunned in the extreme. How is this possible? The dragon is defeated, and the leader of the group is rewarded. Suddenly, the place where Xie Yu was wounded earlier lit up and the guy fell unconscious. When he woke up, Yui was standing in front of him. She was alive, and he hugged her tightly. It turns out that this is a trick of the imagination. In his arms was actually Shen Yunhao, who did not really like so strong greeting. The girl is angry at the one she saved earlier. The protagonist apologizes, but immediately switches to a reasonable question: what happened after all? Looking at the characteristics of the weapon, it turns out that he has a new skill. The level has increased, and the description of the overload mode has changed. Inquiring into the savior, Xie Yu found out that they were in the hotel. Also, the partners shared the reward, or rather it was taken by Shen Yunhao, because for the received points from the boss, she cured the guy. The girl also bought new clothes for the companion, as a show of care. Discussing the fact that the victim was unconscious for 5 days, the young lady began to ask questions about the sword, because she is very interested in what happened. The guy does not tell anything. Deciding to conceal the skill, Eater Shen Yunhao realizes that between them only cooperative relationship, so does not force to reveal all the information. Xie Yu asks whether the girl was hunted as soon as she started playing, to which the savior is horrified and demands to open the map. In addition to helpful notes on the type of mission points and dungeon entrances, a player tracking feature has been incorporated into the guy. The guy is already being followed by other players, and the fact that he's been unconscious for 5 days gives them a big advantage. Scarlet Hawk is already on the lookout for Xie Yu, but due to the large number of buildings, he has some trouble navigating. Brother Eagle and Sister Falcon are also rushing to the mark on the map, and Caution is also in pursuit. There's an 8th-level sniper on the roof of a building. He's known as the Rookie Terminator. The location of his opponents has disappeared from radar. His target is also being hunted by other hunters who have ambushed him. But why are they hunting other players? Newbies who just came in contact with this game will mostly choose quests and raids in dungeons. They will get points and items, but they will have no experience in fighting with players. So these newbies are killed to knock out their items and points. Sometimes newbies get lucky and survive these battles. So some players kill for points and items, and some just like killing people. So Shen Yunhao said she was leaving so that the hunters wouldn't catch the one who saved her life. But Xie Yu grabbed her hand and said he wanted to stay with her. After all, if she meets the hunters, she'll have to fight. He has an idea to not only get out of the trap safely, but possibly make money. The hunters are spotted and the target has disabled the location. The sister of one of the hunters asks her brother what to do now. He tells her that you just need to find and kill the target and then get points and items. He instructed his sister to find the target. Xie Yu has found the 2 hunters, but the sniper is still looking for him and Shen Yunhao. Xie Yu pops up behind the hunters. The hunter tells his sister that this is their target and they attack. The sniper has spotted them and is happy to have some fun today. While Xie Yu runs away from the hunters, Shen Yu follows the sniper and warns him that the sniper might hit him. The hunter cornered the target and fired a green ball from his hand, which turned into his sister. She attacks Xie Yu and apologizes to him, as they just want his points. Xie Yu gives a command, followed by the sniper shooting the hunter's sister. She says she's fine, but there's a hunter upstairs. Her brother thinks that the sniper is their accomplice, and there is some alliance that is using the newcomers as bait to hunt them. It's a trap. He decides to deal with the sniper and shoots him with his hand, and the sniper wonders why his damage wasn't enough. The hunter says that the people who hurt his sister are very sorry about it, and he and his sister attack the sniper. Shen Yu asks Xie Yu how he came up with such a crazy plan, to which he replies that he should forget about it. The important thing is that the plan succeeded. He thought that his plan worked. They pitted the hunters against each other and didn't have to fight them, because his body hasn't recovered yet. Xie asked what would happen if he died in this game. But Xie Yu covered his mouth with his hand. Even though they had pitted those hunters against each other, it didn't mean that there was no one left. A voice is heard from the void. A man appears in front of them and asks why the girl is so wary. She doesn't understand how she didn't notice him. The man appears with a vicious and bloodthirsty look and wants to tell her what will happen. The girl stood in front of the boy and said she would handle it herself. Magically, a costume appeared on her and a huge spear in her hands. The hunter jumped down from the roof and made a superhero landing. He assumed that there was only one prey, so he could have a lot of fun. The girl named Shen Yunyao was in no hurry to attack the enemy. She immediately ordered the guy to stay here. After all, she would handle it herself. And the girl went to attack. She swung. But the enemy easily blocked her with his leg sword. He laughed and then jumped up and already attacked the girl himself. The sword was very close, but Shen Yunyao managed to dodge. The guy was worried about her, but the girl was only interested in the fight. The enemy was surprised by the strength of the opponent, but he was confident that she was still far away from him. But the girl had a slightly different opinion on this, because judging by the strength his level is not higher than her. Then she turned to the guy and said, if he cannot use that sword, then this guy is not his opponent. And the guy realized that he just killed. The enemy meanwhile was already gathering strength in his sword feet and screaming that he was underestimated. And he moved from the place and flew at the girl with words that he has not only plans for her. The girl met his blow with a spear, but he lightning jumped aside and ran behind the girl's back. And Shen Yunyao realized where he was going. The hunter headed towards her companion Xie Yu, snidely saying that the guy is about to die, and his glasses will help him a lot, and swung his leg. The girl in horror shouted the guy's name, trying to warn him of the danger, and there was an explosion. The hunter did not understand what was happening, and the guy was not going to give up and die so easily. A battle suit appeared on his body, and in his hands he held a huge blue sword. His body wasn't in the best shape at the moment, his wounds hadn't healed yet, and his whole body was aching. Then the girl decided to come to the rescue and summoned a firestorm, and a huge fire tornado appeared. The hunter was surprised, but his attention was still fixated on Xie Yu. He attacked the guy and then jumped back and landed in front of the tornado, but he thought that fire was weak. He swung his sword foot horizontally and then vertically, and huge crosses flew at the tornado. They passed through and destroyed it with ease, and afterward their target was the girl. She was ready to repel the blow, but then another explosion sounded. Xie Yu shouted the girl's name in horror, but she was fine, although she had lost a good amount of HP. So it was clear that the enemy's attacks were causing a lot of damage. Then the hunter recognized that these two were a bit strong, and the girl suggested that he surrender while there was still time. The enemy realized that he cannot defeat them. He does not like to take risks, so he offered to make a deal with them. However, they did not take it with enthusiasm. The girl did not think that he could offer them something favorable and offered his option to give all the points and then they will let him go. But the enemy refused and offered them in turn to work together. The guys didn't understand what was the benefit of this, and the hunter continued, saying that as an addition to this, he was offering them to join the Blood Moon. Shen Yunyao didn't deny that the offer was quite tempting, as it was one of the top 10 guilds currently, but it scared Xie Yu. He thought that he was being sold to another guild, but his fears were immediately dispelled. At first, the girl joked and said that she would sell him for 300 points, but then she said that she had no interest in a guild that preys on newcomers, and the guy breathed out a sigh of relief. The biggest problem for him right now was that guy. If he helped Shen Yunyao, they could overpower him. But if he is going to fight alongside her, he must not hinder her. He must defeat the enemy at all costs. So he decided to protect Shen Yunyao and not let the enemy injure her. In turn, the girl advised him to be careful, as their enemy is not as simple as it seems. The hunter smirked and said that in this game after death the character's points and everything he has disappear. The girl was tired of his chatter and she threw herself at him. But from somewhere there were threads from which a whole cocoon of a spider's web was woven, cutting off the path of retreat. The girl didn't understand what kind of thread it was. The enemy didn't have such abilities. As she watched the threads form a wall, the hunter flew at her and said he was giving her a chance. But then Xie Yu flew in and blocked the enemy's punch, and they separated from each other. The guy asked the girl if she was alright. She was fine, But she still had a question in her mind about the mysterious threads. And then from the formed hole someone appeared. It was a new hunter who said that they had enough to play with them. It is necessary to kill them. First hunter rejoiced at the perfect appearance of his comrade, and the latter just wanted to finish the fight quickly. Shen Yunniao and Xie Yu had absolutely no idea who it was. Other than that, everything was entangled around them with threads that completely cut off their escape route. The girl understood that these two were very strong. They would not be able to defeat them. And the guy said that they had to be especially careful, especially with the guy who had a hood on his head, because it was still unclear what kind of player he was and what his abilities were. The hunter laughed and said that they had no chance to win, but the newcomer asked to just kill them. And that one, having accumulated enough strength, jumped back and flew at our heroes. He still has something to show. He began to spin and then turned into a giant cutter and approached the guys. The girl blocked him with her spear to block the blow, and the guy assumed that he wanted to use Nirvana to win. But when the cutter started pressing forward and moving the girl, the guy realized that his goal was to bring her closer to the threads. So the girl doomedly turned to Xie Yu for help, realizing that only he was able to save the situation. He instantly reacted and ran to help, but as soon as he got close to the hunter, a portal opened from above and a hooded hunter came out of it. He shouted to the guy that he did not interfere and drew his sword. He began to surround Xie Yu with magic. Magical flow began to grow and created walls that prevented even to move our hero. And then the girl realized that she would have to rely only on her own strength. And the cutter still continued to press. The girl thinks that this trick is useless against her. And then began to concentrate and at the right moment hit the torch. The hunter jumped back to his partner. He didn't like it, and the guy thought she was strong. They underestimated her. Xie Yu began to panic, frantically thinking what to do. As the girl's life force and mana was running low. She said frustratedly if he didn't have some trump card up his sleeve, they were finished. The guy didn't understand what to do, because using life force to attack is dangerous, and he doesn't think he'll last long. But then he realized that he could use another way. He asked Yunniao to lend him something, but she didn't understand what he wanted from her. And then the stone was cut. The hunter approached. He laughed and said that whether it was clearing dungeons or hunting newcomers, he was looking for enemies that were weaker than him. He smugly believed that he would defeat them 100%. He went on to say that they were right not to agree to work with him, because the shadow killer was always waiting for them to hesitate. He also said that as newcomers to this game, they were pretty good, but they would still die at his hands, because today his chance of winning was 100%. Xie Yu was still not so sure of his loss and thought that his chance was not 100%, because even during the earthquake and accident there was a chance of survival. Even 1/100% was a hope of victory, that the only thing their enemy was capable of was attacking from the back and acting tough. But the enemy didn't agree with him, because Xie Yu hasn't even experienced all the difficulties of this game and has no right to say such things. He had once been on the verge of death, but God had given him the opportunity to live. Since then, he made a decision that he should live to the fullest. He always knew that there are people who live their lives to the fullest. When he was a child, he injured his legs in an accident and became disabled, but he never gave up. Day after day he studied and trained hard, but even so, people like him were not treated fairly in this world. There were times when they would not hire him, explaining that he was an invalid and his efforts would be of little use. But to give him credit, he did not give up and diligently went to his goal and lived on all 90%, using the body only 50, but still felt nothing. And when this game came along, he was chosen to be the player of the final game. And then he decided to replenish his life to the full 100% at all costs. And now he was here and would not allow himself to waste even a minute of his life for nothing. Meanwhile, Xie Yu pondered over the plan. There was only one thing to hope for. He summoned a devourer and activated the F-class energy core absorption skill. He was able to absorb it, and the reboot mode began. The girl remembered that this was the core they had gotten in the dungeon, and she couldn't believe that the guy had done it. Xie Yu was very satisfied with this devourer as he felt an incredible power throughout his body, and that was even though the reboot was ready at 15%. Even their new enemy, the hooded guy, noticed that something was wrong with him and thought it best to stop. But the other hunter wasn't going to listen to anyone and stubbornly believed that Xie Yu's trick wouldn't save him from death. Meanwhile, The other guy activated the sword deformation and threw himself into the attack, and then asked to be allowed to tell the truth that nothing in this world existed 100% and repelled the enemy's attack. The enemy did not tolerate such an attitude and hit him hard, but the guy deflected it quite competently, which surprised the hooded guy quite a lot. He did not understand how a newcomer could have such strength. Soon, Xie Yu defeated the enemy and said that he would always use any slightest chance to win, even if it was only 1%. And the hooded guy realized that Kong Xing had truly lost. Shen Yunyao praised her colleague that despite his injuries, he was still able to win. Xie Yu then said that the fight was not over. Even though his enemy was barely standing on his feet, he was ready to continue fighting. But the hooded guy didn't like it, so he preferred to stop the battle and flee the battlefield. The building recovered and the field disappeared, and Xie Yu exhaled in relief and was able to retrieve the items and points of the player he killed. Although the slain man had items in a small box, but there were quite a lot and they were quite valuable. Suddenly, Shen Yunyao said that he had to give her some of the things he had gotten, either 10 times the points or some of the equipment. Xie Yu resented the fact that he had to share what he won with someone, but the girl reminded him that if it wasn't for her help, he would have died a long time ago. The guy gave her 1700 points, which was a valuable resource because it could be converted into money and get 1,700,000 points. After thinking for a while, Xie Yu decided that after repeated battles, he had better change his attitude towards points. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to get closer to the goal of 100 million points. Shen Yunyao explained to him that he could only buy 1,000 points at his current level, and the more he bought, the more expensive it would cost him. There is no price there for a beginner at all. Only a player with a lot of points would dare to play like this. Besides, it's a free game where players do whatever they want, so they need time to learn how to play here properly. That's why she is now thinking about how to spend points on things that will help in various emergency situations. He can also express his ideas and choose his own path if he wishes. Xie Yu remarked that he needed to think, but Shen Yunyao meanwhile cashed in all the gifted and most valuable points. She did it in such a way that all the old broken items were on the guy's side, while she took only the best of the items, which made Xie Yu angry and bewildered, so she gave him a ghost potion. After using it for 30 minutes, the player's heart would stop beating. Xie Yu was a bit confused as he didn't understand how to control it, and soon he was alone, although he didn't understand how to return home. He felt bad that even though he had defeated that guy, all he got was a bunch of useless trash. He threw the stone on the ground in his heart, and the system immediately notified him that he had received a rare item and asked him to pick it up. Xie Yu was incredibly happy about the item, but the item was like an egg, and he wondered how he could open it. Perhaps it needs to be placed in an incubator, or it must take some time for someone to hatch from the egg. He decided to go back home and check how he could make the best use of the valuable item. Xie Yu traveled home and took a good rest from the battle, then decided to deal with the inventory he had received. After logging in, he opened his status window and saw that he had earned 3,400 points by defeating Kong Xing, half of which had been taken by Shen Yunyao. Also, in all those battles that were before, he was able to level up 3 times. However, it was probably still best to avoid battles where he had to put his life on the line. Aside from strength, probably everything. He needs to put points into dexterity and also needs to deal with that egg he got. Going into his inventory, he selected the fire egg sign, and it said when the moon escapes its presence, a candle will light up from within. Realizing that this inventory needed a special condition to withdraw, the guy made the decision to leave it alone for now, and instead decided to see what characteristics his general equipment had. After examining the inventory, Xie Yu realized that his weapons were worth almost nothing and even thought about selling it all. But he realized that this junk probably wouldn't bring him much money, but he decided to give it a try anyway. As expected, he only got a +1 point. He then decided to upgrade his armor, and after that the system gave him a protective gauntlet and the basic attributes. Damage reduction +1%, devouring set 5 and 5 defeat points, devouring breastplate, devouring protective gloves, devouring kneepads, devouring boots. Bonus armor skills, bonus set skill active, can use devourer on other gear, and active gains skills dexterity +1. The guy realized that this set of armor I have to get even more skills, and decided to hurry up and put the rest of the equipment into the armor. Then he saw that as long as the equipment has extra attributes on it, his devouring armor can absorb them to get those bonus attributes. Xie Yu then decided to find a way to get more trash equipment that had extra stats. After all, trash gear was pretty cheap. As long as he got enough of it, his gear would be powerful, similar to high-level equipment. This game probably had a market, so he decided find out where it was, but before he did, try to score more points. While he was thinking about it, a new task had just been added. Xie Yu decided that even if these tasks didn't pay much, they were relatively safe to do. The point of the assignment was to start going to school and get 10 points each day and thus accumulate 400 points. This guy flailed and realized that the system was just messing with him. But nevertheless, the next day he was already in the courtyard of the training college. Looking around, he was surprised to see that his old friend was also here. This guy's name was Wang Bo. He had met him while playing video games and never thought that they would be in the same college. He was his best friend at the moment, but Wang Bo didn't even recognize him at first, which made the guy smile. Looking closely at him, Wang Bo recognized his longtime friend and was very happy. After a while, they sat and had lunch, discussing the latest news from each other's lives. Wang Bo was a little offended at his friend that he had disappeared, did not even pick up the phone, and he could not find him. But nevertheless, he did not hold a grudge against him and was happy that his friend had returned. Wang Bo then admired Xie Yu's appearance, but he only brushed it off and paid attention to some pleasant voice singing not far from them. Wang Bo then told him that their school recently had a very popular singer who was loved not only by the teachers but also by the students. Xie Yu didn't admire this state of affairs but noticed that the voice sounded quite familiar to him. Wang Bo then offered to introduce him to the singer and introduced them to each other. To his surprise, Xie Yu saw Shen Yunniao in front of him, but only now she looked a little different than when they were fighting enemies in the game. It soon turned out Wang Bo had been promised to erase his attendance record if he brought Xie Yu to her. This discovery angered the guy quite a bit, but there was nothing to do. Shen Yunniao tried to calm him down and explained that she was the new class teacher, but Xie Yu didn't really want to talk to her and was about to run off to class. But Shen Yunniao stopped him, suggesting him not to avoid her. She then summoned the system and gave him a share for Kong Xing's equipment. Xie Yu rejoiced as he could buy a lot of weak equipment with this amount. Meanwhile, Shen Yunniao cheated for yesterday's deed, and Xie Yu decided to find out where to sell the gear. Then the girl explained to him that there is a market and it appears every Saturday on Buxing Street, and the guy realized that it would be better to drop by the market this Saturday. Shen Yunniao interrupted his musings by showing him a news on social media that Pan Kong Xing, a famous architect with a disability, had passed away in his home last night. Investigators believe his death was a suicide, and the cause of his suicide remains unknown. Xie Yu realized that he was the same Kong Xing he killed on Friday. However, he was surprised that it said he committed suicide, but Shen Yunniao explained to him that when a character dies in the game, he dies in real life, but the way the game kills is very strange. Most deaths will look like suicide, which ensures that no one on the outside will be a suspect. Xie Yu admitted that killing is not easy for him, even though it offers some pretty good rewards. However, he's not quite ready to end up hurting other people, so he's decided to do it in a way that he finds acceptable. But at the same time, if someone dares to attack him, he will have to repay in the same coin. Shen Yunniao admitted that she was sure he would need help to recover from the shock of the assassination, but it turned out that he didn't need it. So she suggested that he team up with her and go to a low-level dungeon so that he could quickly raise his level. Xie Yu to her surprise refused, although he actually enjoys playing video games, and when he is compared to a higher-level player, it makes him feel better. There's a problem with that it's too easy. If a player can't even remember what a game card looks like, then he's just playing like a fool. And for that game, when human life is at stake, playing like a fool, you can only expect death. After a while, the guy lay in his room and planned that he should hurry up and complete as many tasks as possible before the Saturday market to get more points. And then just then, the system gave him a task to clear the Ghost Hospital Rank E dungeon, for which 5,500 experience could be gained, and Xie Yu was happy about this offer. It was hard to believe it, but just a few days ago, Xie Yu weighed under 200 kilograms, But now he could easily jump over 2-meter-high walls and had a good physical fitness. So now he could easily climb the fence and jump over it to get to the ghost hospital dungeon of rank E. When he arrived, the entrance to the dungeon was open, and once he got there, he saw a mummified player who was probably supposed to be guarding the dungeon. Since the entrance was closed after he got there, Xie Yu saw that there were 2 paths he could take. But it was unclear which one was the right path and which one was a trap, or maybe they were both right. Deciding that the latter option was the right one, he pushed the first door he could find and went inside. There he saw a lot of monsters, which probably should have scared him, but it didn't affect him much. Because the guy knew that such a large number of monsters were perfect for testing his strength after being pumped by the system. After first estimating the strength of the monsters, he realized that he would be able to clear this dungeon. And he was quite happy about it, since he couldn't do much in the F-rank dungeon with Shen Yunniao before. This could mean that the strength of the monster in this game varied depending on the level of the player who entered it. And the difficulty of these monsters was just enough for him to practice his experience and skills safely. Also, the guy understood that even if the characterization points made his body stronger, without getting used to the new skills, he would be useless in battle. At the same time, he couldn't even rely on the overload mode too much, as it would cause him a lot of damage if used frequently. After performing a few attacks, Xie Yu realized that his body seemed to be getting used to the new characteristics. His attention was attracted by a transparent figure that looked like his familiar named Yui. Xie Yu rushed after her and called out to her to get up, but the figure didn't hear him and soon disappeared from the corner. He knew with his mind that she was already dead and there was no way she could have appeared in a place like this dungeon. He had known Lin Yui practically all his life. They had grown up together, and as they grew up she became more and more beautiful. To other people, the girl was a model student and a revered person. However, she had a flip side that few people knew: a love of video games. He thought they would be best friends forever, but soon she had friends who broke them up, not understanding how she could be friends with a man who was fat, ugly and spent all his time playing video games. Thus, in time, he even began to believe that he was unworthy of her friendship. The last time she came to him and asked him to play with her, but he refused, saying that there was another time, but the other time never came. Xie Yu woke up from his memories and realized that now was not the time to be sad. He was sure that as long as he earned more points, he would see her again, and this next time would definitely come. Walking a little on the dungeon, he met a skeleton, in whose hand was some valuable thing. Although as for the monsters, there was no guarantee that they wouldn't attack him as soon as he approached them and took the artifact. However, he had to be very careful as the monsters were preparing a trap before him. However, he was not going to fall into it. He decided to attack, but the system said that he could not attack the skeleton. Spitting on it, he still made an attack and soon the artifact was in his hands. However, as soon as he picked it up, the monster came to life and started attacking. But Xie Yu was not afraid and attacked it again. After that, the system notified him that he had earned a new title, which advised him to use this title to get all the senpai to pay attention to him. Xie Yu decided it was better not to use it in the dungeon. Besides, he didn't really want too much attention. Shen Yunniao took off all her clothes and immersed herself in the bathtub. Her thoughts were on Xie Yu, as she was really pissed off at him for refusing her offer. Meanwhile, the guy himself continued to fight in the dungeon. Soon, he had already obtained the blood crystal artifact that he needed. There was still some time left to find the boss, and he could clear the dungeon. Yui's ghost appeared in front of him again, and he tried to chase after her again unsuccessfully. Monsters got in his way and he started attacking them, but the more he fought, the more monsters appeared. During this merciless fight, it became clear that the dungeon had another floor down and an entrance to another room. Xie Yu realized that the ghost was most likely leading him here to the underworld itself. Even though he was a little creepy, he decided to go in. Once inside, he saw a cave, and there were monsters that were different from the ones outside. One of the monsters was approaching them and the guy was preparing to fight, but it turned out that none of his attacks were working.
The ghost grabbed an axe and struck the guy with it lightning fast. The axe hit the guy and his HP was greatly reduced. Xie Yu realized that he couldn't fight them. He couldn't withstand another attack like this as it took away half of his HP. The ghosts began to approach and he made a decision to get out of here as soon as possible. And luckily he managed to escape from the underworld. Xie Yu paused for breath and wondered why the monsters were attacking him, if it was just because he was alive. He didn't understand why the underworld was a place where only the dead could enter and how dead creatures could have feelings. Then he remembered something, that he had something and he assumed that it might help. If he wasn't wrong, he could be killed as soon as he went in there. He pulled out a vial of green liquid. This is turtle healing water. This water works for 30 minutes after starting to use it. During this time, the user's heartbeat will not be felt. All the performance will be lower than 90%. Xie Yu started to drink the potion and the system lowered all his stats, and to his horror, he realized that he could hardly move and felt very weak, but it was obvious because the medicine was very strong. His legs began to shake and then his whole body. He realized that probably the same way all old people feel. Taking a step, he felt that he was wasting half of his energy. Entering the underworld, he saw that the monsters were getting closer and hoped that the cure would work after all. The ghost stood right in front of the guy. He even covered his nose and held his breath so he wouldn't smell it, but as expected they left without attacking, as they couldn't detect him since his heartbeat had almost stopped. The monsters were gone and now he could breathe freely, and finally he reached the place where the boss was supposed to be. He had spent a lot of time on this, and this imposter better be close by. There was a fountain in front of him and he was very happy about it. He had run here so hard, but it was bad that Yui had already left. He didn't even get anything from her. At least he found water and could at least quench his thirst. Xie Yu went to the fountain and put his hand in the water and felt that the water was warm and unusual. After a moment, he noticed that his HP started to recover, and Xie Yu assumed that this was the elixir of life. He was no longer at risk of dying. He stood under the stream of water and closed his eyes. The fountain could not only restore life, but also remove the effects of the turtle healing water, which was very useful because the exit was not far away and there should not be any more monsters there. He heard the voice of an old friend calling Xie Yu and asking why he was looking at her like that. The guy turned around and saw the girl standing with her back to him and called out to her. He asked her in surprise if it was really her, his Yui. Yui kept saying it was her and chided him for taking so long to walk. The guy wanted to cheer the girl up and walked over to her. But Yui turned around and fought his hand away. She didn't want him to touch her. Xie Yu was horrified. He didn't expect this from Yui. The girl looked sadly at the guy and turned to him. She asked why he did that to her. Xie Yu didn't know what to answer him, and the girl started to get angry and asked if he was going to answer. The guy only continued to stare at her in surprise with his mouth ajar, and the girl continued to say that everything happened the day he rejected her invitations. And afterwards she accused him of being the reason she was in a terrible car accident. If it wasn't for him, nothing would have happened and she wouldn't have been in 30 minutes of hellish pain. The one who killed her was him, Xie Yu, and the guy shuddered in horror, but still didn't know what to say to her. He remembered how back then at home, the girl had told Xie Yu that a store nearby made the best cakes, and suggested he go there. Then another memory came up. When he and Yui were at school, the girl was asking Xie Yu why he looked so upset, and then suggested they go play an arcade game where she would show him her skills. Yui grabbed the guy's hand and said she caught him. Now he has to go with her no matter what. Xie Yu realized that his inferiority and weakness made him reject her so many times. He was a good friend, but not enough. The guy fell on his knees and said that Yui's words were true. Xie Yu looked at his hands in horror. He was shaking with fear and said that if it wasn't for him she wouldn't have died. Even the doctor said that there was a chance that she would have survived if she was sent to the hospital in time. And then he started saying over and over again that he was the one who killed her. The girl stood in front of the guy and said menacingly that she would never forgive him. And then Yui raised her hand that burned with red flames and demanded that he give her his soul in return. Yui pulled her hand towards him and Xie Yu was shaking with fear. He couldn't even look at the girl. Many memories with Yui surfaced in his mind. Many times he chose to play games instead of spending time with Yui. Xie Yu took the girl's hand and then cried and started to apologize. He explained that he was weak, ignorant and scared before, so much so that he didn't even have the courage to face her back then. Things would have been different if only he had been a little braver back then. Xie Yu then stood up and walked over to the girl. He said that there was no point in thinking about the options. He finally had a chance to see her again. He said through tears that if he gave her his soul, it could be a way for him to redeem himself. but it would be by running away. This time Xie Yu wouldn't run away. He would become strong and gain points until he saw her again. This way he decided to atone for his sin. Yui didn't expect such words. The girl smiled and agreed with him. The girl started to glow with a yellow glow but still continued to smile. Xie Yu started crying again, but there was nothing he could do. Before he could blink an eye, the girl disappeared, right into his arms. After a while, Xie Yu woke up. He was in the water. He abruptly surfaced from the water. And the system said that the mission was completed. He was given 1200 experience and 150 points. Xie Yu realized that this was a hidden mission, and that this was only part of the underground city and the rest of the fight was still ahead. Xie Yu started to get angry at the game developers. They create very disgusting scenes, and then asked him to return all his tears. Then he saw that the fountain started to glow and thought that there was another artifact there. And so it was. There was a suppressed statue of a goddess. The guy was skeptical of this bounty as it didn't look particularly valuable. Xie Yu looked at the water and it started to create magical energy again. The guy realized he had to leave. He didn't want to see this again. Looking at the map, he realized that he had been to the entire underground city and now he didn't know where to go next. He turned around and came across a door with a huge monster hanging from it, anchored by stone spurs. The guy started climbing up the rocks to get a closer look at the monster. Xie Yu quickly realized that he needed to put the two artifacts he found in the right place and thus wake up the boss. He stuck one artifact into the hole in the monster's chest. Then he pulled out the second one, swung it around and yelled, "Wake up!" He shoved it right into the center of the creature's chest. The monster lit up with red energy and began to move. The glow was very bright and Xie Yu covered himself, but as expected the monster started to come to life. Our hero jumped away from it and the monster pulled a rock from the wall and then threw it. The monster began to glow with energy. Its power could not withstand the chains with which it was bound. The monster concentrated the magic in his hand and then slammed it into the floor. Moments later, a huge bone sword appeared in his hand. The system immediately issued an alert of danger and the appearance of the E-Class underground city's boss, the sorrowful skeleton knight. Xie Yu realized that the battle was not going to be easy. And then the monster said, "Unauthorized person," and surprised the guy with it. The skeleton asked him if he had come to fight him. Xie Yu asked him the same question. But then he had an idea. He found its weakness in the form of faith. The guy threw a yellow artifact to the monster. He wondered what would happen. The skeleton monster caught the object and was greatly surprised by the guy's actions. He said that the object was the cause of his grief. It was forcibly taken away from him, and Xie Yu was able to get it back and restore the monster's faith in humanity. But the monster started swinging his sword. The guy didn't understand why, because he had returned the item to him. But Skeleton swung his sword at the door and destroyed it, and then he said he would show him the way ahead. And the guy suggested they stop talking and just take a deep breath. After that, the monster began to burn with red flames. It started to turn into dust, and then it disappeared. The system said that the E-Class underground boss had disappeared, which meant that the guy had found the leader of the underground city, the hidden boss. Xie Yu realized that the point of the hidden quest was to find the hidden boss. The dust and smoke began to disappear, and one could see what was behind the door. Xie Yu was greatly surprised by what he saw. Yui had appeared in front of him again. But it was an illusion created by the monster to bring the guy to the right place. The guy drew his sword and said that he doesn't know what his purpose is and what kind of hidden boss he is. But he dare not use Yui to play with him. This made him furious and he promised the boss that he would die. Xie Yu bravely ordered the boss to come out now instead of hiding behind the girl. Just then, energy chains began to crawl out from the ground. They enveloped the girl from head to toe. The guy started to get really angry, but then realized that he needed to stay calm. It wasn't really Yui, it was just a trick to provoke him. But the boss did come out, and Yui was getting more and more shrouded in chains. Here we see a huge demon girl with wings, wearing stone armor and a magical pickaxe in her hand. The system wrote that this is the boss of the hidden F-rank dungeon and it is a witch who hunts souls. The witch's eyes lit up and she smiled. Xie Yu saw that it was an enemy who could fly. and realized that it would be hard to defeat him since he couldn't use ranged attacks. So he decided to give it a try. He clenched his sword in his hands. And then he activated the reset mode and his body was covered in blue magic. The guy pushed himself off the ground. And then attacked. Xie Yu started running very fast. He started bouncing off the walls and ran behind the witch's back. The guy flew at the boss at a breakneck speed, hoping to finish him off with one punch. However, the witch turned around. And the guy didn't expect her to be so fast. The witch swung her pickaxe and fireballs flew at the attacker. But they were not just fireballs, but skulls burning with blue fire. The guy was surprised but not scared. He immediately swung his sword and dealt with them, ordering them to get out of his way. But Xie Yu was distracted and one skull survived and was already flying at the guy who had just noticed it. The fiery creature bit the guy's right shoulder. And then he fell to the ground and that fire skull exploded. But it didn't hurt the guy. He got up and started to reason. Usually a boss that flies and uses magic as its main method of attack is bad at close combat, and Xie Yu wondered how he could even get close to it at this speed. The witch hardly yawned as she was bored. She landed on a stone pillar. And then laying down on it, she realized that her victim was a weak opponent who thought he was lucky when he found the secret dungeon and in hopes of getting more rewards, he came to fight the boss. But unfortunately for her, he turned out to be just another sad soul she attracted to her bedroom. Xie Yu's fears about trapping him were so confirmed. The demon girl started creating fiery skulls that crawled out from her pickaxe in droves. She pitied the guy, calling him poor. The witch stated that before taking his soul from him, she wanted to torture him a bit, and the fireheads flew towards the guy, opening their mouths. But the attack wasn't directed at the boy, and he didn't realize what the witch was up to, and the fireballs flew into the stone floor. A moment later some hands began to pierce the floor. The boy was horrified. She had summoned an army of spirits, huge and powerful skeletons with burning eyes and massive arms. And the guy now found it even harder to get close to the witch. The skeletons immediately started running at our hero. They opened their mouths and grabbed their swords. Xie Yu lit up with blue energy. He realized that he should immediately attack. He doesn't have time to waste energy on all sorts of petty things, as he needs to attack the witch. He was getting very angry and swung his sword. But then some monster blocked his attack with his hand. The guy didn't think skeletons would be able to do that. But it was not an ordinary skeleton, but a huge stone monster that looked a bit like a skeleton, and had red armor and fiery eyes. While the guy was just looking at him with surprised eyes, the monster hit Xie Yu with his right hand. And he flew away for many meters and then flew into the wall. Even the skeletons summoned by the witch were surprised. This attack didn't hurt the guy much, but it made him angry. The guy was amazed that this minion was able to block the attack he made during the reset mode. Also, judging from the gear they have, they look like some player's gear, and the guy assumed that their souls were caught by the boss here. He had no choice but to use the reboot mode again, spending energy to fight the boss, either die or win. Xie Yu activated the reboot mode by 10%. He then stuck his sword into the floor and energy streams came from it. They connected and an explosion occurred. The energy instantly absorbed the skeletons and dissolved them. The witch stood up from the stone in surprise. She realized that this guy was not so simple. In one attack he destroyed her entire ghost army. But luckily for her, she still had many more spirits stored inside her scythe, and they started to crawl out with bloodlust. Xie Yu realized that he could only use the attack once, and if he used it on a group of monsters, he would be finished. He wouldn't be able to fight the witch boss anymore. The guy was angry. He didn't want to die right here and now. The witch continued to release the spirits and started laughing. She asked him to let her use the spirits of his men. Xie Yu closed his eyes. He realized that he needed to calm down. Shen Yunyao would never forgive him for showing weakness. She would laugh until she fell. Besides, his childhood friend Yui still needed rescuing. He can't think of losing. The guy decided that since it's a game, he can't play. Besides, if he was destined to die another day, he should try his luck today to the end. And the witch waved her scythe. Instantly the spirits flew out from her. She was summoning her slaves. After finishing reloading, Xie Yu directed an energy surge at the enemies, and with it, He was able to tear the spirits to pieces before they reached the ground. The witch realized that he had reached his limit before she took a step towards him, so she decided to go easy on him before she died, especially since he had amused her. But the guy surprised her again by using the power of the souls of the dead and their pain. The system alerted him to a huge flow of energy that he could tap into. No, the energy had exceeded the limit, so it was preparing him to enter overload mode. Xie Yu could now hear the suffering and sorrow of those souls that were being tormented by this witch. They were begging him to fight her and punish this monster who was playing with souls. Then the sword's form changed and new skills appeared in his mind. He got the feeling that he had always known how to use them. His body was filled with energy and the 5% overload mode was no longer a problem for him. The witch expressed doubts about his strength. Xie Yu had no choice but to ask her to test his strength on his own skin. He rushed into the attack and really felt that his strength had become more powerful and his speed greater. Soon he saw the effects of his attack and how the witch's XP was reduced by half. The witch was greatly angered that he was able to harm her and promised that she would let him witness her true power before she died. She then summoned the captive's transformed power and her XP transformed into the indestructible form of a vengeful fallen angel. Xie Yu watched these changes with horror. He didn't expect what would happen next. The witch rushed at him to attack and he saw that her speed and strength had greatly increased after evolving. The witch had to give her credit, admired him for forcing her to use this form. He was truly worthy of praise. She then used a frontal attack and advised him to relax as now his soul already belonged to her anyway. Xie Yu thought with a kind of doom that he wouldn't be able to escape and this was really the end. Despite this, he stood there and smiled, for he was a true gamer, and as a gamer, there could be nothing more exciting to him than to find himself in a hopeless situation and instantly switch roles. He drew his sword and noted with triumph that he wasn't the one who couldn't move, but she was restrained and standing still. He had only one chance to use this attack and he was looking forward to it and it finally came. He rushed into the attack and tried to destroy it and indeed to his satisfaction the witch fell and disappeared. Looking at all this, the boy realized that he had won. The witch froze like a statue and suddenly said what she knew from the moment he entered the underground city, that only he would be able to truly free her soul. The system notified the underground city boss of the successful victory and stated that the rewards would be automatically transferred to the inventory. Xie Yu exhaled a sigh of relief as he realized how dangerous this was. The guy saw Yui's ghost flying towards him, only he spread his hands to try and catch her as she dissolved right into his fingers. He realized that it was just an illusion in the game, but even so he was happy to meet her and hoped that next time he could bring his friend to her senses when he met her. After the game was over, Xie Yu was already at his home and was studying his stats. It turned out that he had leveled up from 2 to 8 and received 1,000 extra points. To his satisfaction, he was happy with the rewards and realized that it looked like his efforts in the dungeon had completely paid off. He then began to examine the accessories and it turned out that the purple rarity accessory contained incredible soul energy. Xie Yu realized that most likely this stone was a source of energy. He could use it for the overload mode next time. This pleased him. He decided to try to gather enough energy sources and use them to master the overwhelming power. For this purpose, using the energy for overload mode, he looked at his hands and saw that many fresh scars had appeared on them. At first he thought that it was an injury from the underground city, but that couldn't be the case since he hadn't received such a huge amount of damage. Afterward, he saw that those scars were scattered all over his body, which could denote a response to the sword damage. Every time he activated the overload mode, he would run out of energy and this in turn would affect his theme. Since every time he activates overload mode, he now feels pain all over his body, but thought there would be no repercussions from it. He was frustrated, as he didn't know before that this overload mode would not be easy to deal with and that the cost would be his own business. It turns out he could no longer rely too much on the overload mode, although at that moment, he was just scared of what might happen in the future when fighting monsters. Although from another point of view, if a devouring sword can take the life of a player, does that mean it's an extremely powerful weapon? In this case, if he can't rely on the overload mode, then perhaps he can use the devouring sword's ability to enhance his strength and increase his combat effectiveness. After pondering thus, he made a decision to ask Xing Yunniao tomorrow to take him to the trade market she had told him earlier and try to buy himself some equipment, especially since he had earned some pretty good points in the last battle. This meant that he was not going to stop there and would try to defeat as many monsters as possible and strengthen his skills. At school, one of the students suggested to the class head Xie Yu to join a taekwondo event after class. She agreed, and another student started swearing that he wanted to invite her to a safer activity, the basketball cheerleading team. But then their scuffle was broken up by Xie Yu, who came to the class. After everyone calmed down, the class head asked everyone to take their seats, and Xie Yu asked to sit next to her since he had business with her. But the girl at first took his company in stride and told him not to even think of asking for her help after he rejected her last time. Then she turned her attention to his hands and was horrified. She asked if it was the aftereffects from last night's attack in the dungeon. The guy replied that it was fine and she shouldn't worry so much. The girl was immediately embarrassed and remarked that she wasn't really that worried. The classmate then cut to the chase and reminded her how she had mentioned the shopping market and offered her 300 points to take him there tonight. Xie Yu stated that she was going to go there anyway, so they were asking him for 500 points for it. Xie Yu didn't object since he already understood that she would say that. While they weren't talking, the system notified that there was a new task. Xie Yu was not happy about this announcement, as he didn't really want to do any task for very little points. Xie Yu explained to him that the system would penalize him if he ignored the daily task. The essence of the task was to answer the teacher's question correctly, and the reward was 50 points. This was when the teacher actually asked a question and several students raised their hands. Xie Yu was a little worried that he wouldn't have time to answer the question, but he actually still had an option to solve this problem. Taking advantage of the title of efficiency, he raised his hand and the teacher chose him, which surprised Xie Yu quite a bit. Meanwhile, the guy was wondering how he could solve the following problem. A boat has a mass of 100 kilograms and a total length of 3 meters 6 centimeters from the back and front. If a person who weighs 50 kilograms walks from the back of the boat to the front of the boat, what is the distance that the front of the boat will move? Xie Yu decided to use the system's help. It cost him 20 points, but the answer instantly appeared in his head. And he said, the answer was 1 meter and 20 centimeters. The teacher was delighted that the student had answered this question very quickly and correctly. Xie Yu sat back down relaxedly, and Xie Yu declared that the effective title suited him very well. The guy only brushed it off and remarked that no matter what, he had made a net profit of 30 points, so he wasn't out of pocket. The headquarters at the Blood Moon Guild apartment, one of the people present when the leader Kong Xing fought, reported his demise. The newcomer was incredible and much stronger than the leader. The boss noted that the newcomer had a unique sword and there was nothing surprising about it. The other guilds would be getting into action soon and he was sure they would know what to do. Hunter replied that he understood, and his partner stated that he only needed 1 day to bring the rookie to the boss dead or alive. Xie Yu looked at his phone screen and saw the time 23:52 there. He was standing in the subway since Xie Yu had told him to meet her here so they could take the train to the market together, but she still wasn't there. He started to resent that she was long gone, as he heard a girl's voice behind him who was unhappy that he was judging her. Turning to her, he saw that she was as always in a completely different outfit than she was before. Xie Yu was surprised at how often the girl changed her clothes. Xie Yu explained that it was to prevent the other players from recognizing her. Just then, a train arrived and the dispatcher announced that this station was out of service and this was the last train for today. Xie Yu resented the fact that because of the girl, they might have missed the last train. Xie Yu advised him to shut up and stated that he would soon find out and realize everything for himself. Suddenly, the dispatcher greeted the passengers again and asked them to hold on tight and stick to the right side as the train had already started moving. Xie Yu was surprised that the lights in the carriage went out, and Xie Yu advised him to look out the window and he saw an unusual place there, which was like a dungeon. Xie Yu was surprised that they were in that place. The girl then told him that it was indeed a supreme dungeon before, but after Jin Chang associations and treaties, it had turned into a stock market. They relied on this market to obtain land and become one of the top 4 associates along with leagues like Lionheart, Grey Mist, Blood Moon. All of these 4 associations have their own leagues and many of the rules in this game have been changed because of them. As far as they knew, the enemies they were fighting should be from the Blood Moon Association, so they should be careful from now on. Xie Yu realized then why there were so many aspects of this game that surprised him. Then the dispatcher announced that they had arrived at the station and that station would be closing soon, so they should leave the carriage as soon as possible. It turned out that the Jin Chang Association required the players not to hide their equipment. Xie Yu saw that they had forcibly switched outfits. Stepping out of the carriage, the guy was amazed at what opened up in front of him. There were many skyscrapers and all sorts of hunters around. Xie Yu wondered if it was normal to walk around like this in his equipment in the open. Shen Yunhao confirmed that the Jinchang Association allowed fighting in public, but they really better go another way to avoid possible trouble. Xie Yu didn't really come to you just from such a suggestion since they needed to go through dark paths, but Shen Yunhao advised not to worry since she knew the local roads better than him. No sooner had they walked a few meters than they heard that they had been called. Shen Yunhao was surprised that they were quickly revealed there, but Xie Yu stopped her and explained that it wasn't them being addressed at all. They would see a young girl being harassed by two hunters not far from them. The girl tried to call for help and asked them not to touch her and let her go. Xie Yu remembered that he had seen this girl earlier that day when he and Shen Yunhao were fighting together. He wanted to help her, but Shen Yunhao stopped him abruptly. There was no way he could go there, so she offered him something else. Suddenly, an alarm went off and her system's working mode activated. The hunters were surprised that someone had turned on the emergency system, but in reality, when in an emergency situation, anyone could call out for help to the emergency system and it would activate itself automatically. Meanwhile, the system scanned the criminals who still hadn't stopped their illegal actions. It then tried to stop them, which angered the brothers of the Blood Moon Association. Although it didn't really help that girl and so Xie Yu wanted to go and help her again, but Shen Yunhao once again held his hand back and reminded him that he just needed to observe. Just then, a person from the Jinchang Association showed up to find out who dared to fool around in his territory and also beat up his robots. And Shen Yunhao explained to Xie Yu, who was surprised by his appearance, that in the stock market, those who dare to break the rules can pay for it with their lives. Since this is the only way for their exchange to make money, they are very concerned about their image. The girl got off the robot, slung her gun on her shoulder, and motioned for the little King Kong to make a fuss. The Jinchang representative who appeared billed the culprits for the damages caused in the form of damaged robots, damage to the arena, as well as the security management of the Jinchang Association and their personal declarations for a total of 3,000 points. She offered to hand over all the evidence to her after the payment or else their association would punish them. The HMPF criminal decided to follow the old pattern and attack the representative from behind as he had a weapon. Xie Yu tried to warn her, but Shen Yunhao still wouldn't let him help. The representative got angry when she saw what the criminal wanted to do, but he was stopped by Xie Yu who intervened, surprising and thanking the representative. She promised to give him an 8% discount and a penalty of 100 points. Xie Yu was indignant that he was being punished. The representative didn't listen to him anymore and turned to the victim. She assured him that she was fine, and the surviving offender tried to bring his partner to his senses. He then began to resent that their Jinchang Association was provoking the Blood Moon Association to retaliate by their actions. The strong representatives of the Blood Moon Association along with their ghost face master appeared and objected that a trash like him couldn't call himself a part of their association, so he was destined to die. With those words, he finished him off. Representative Jin Chang then announced that he would now have to repay a debt of 3,000 points for the murdered man, to which Ghostface objected that he was not interested in underage girls. He then turned away from her and turned his attention to Xie Yu, who he remembered was responsible for Kong Xing's death. Xie Yu covered Shen Yunhao with himself in a way that made him realize that he was the one who had defeated Kong Xing and his girlfriend had nothing to do with it. Shen Yunhao didn't like this prioritization, but Ghostface objected that none of them would be able to escape from him anyway. Meanwhile, Association representative Jin Chang demanded that Ghostface stop ignoring her. Then he turned his attention to her and thought it best to apologize for the inexcusable act of his men and apologize for their reckless behavior, and promised to make amends. But before he did so, he offered to play the Casino of Fate. Xie Yu at first did not understand what he was talking about. Then Shen Yunhao explained to him that the Casino of Fate is a game of chance in which all points and the lives of both parties are used instead of a bet. And while they were in danger now, if they leave the trading city, they will be ambushed by them. But in the Casino of Fate, there is a chance to win. The ghostly face smiled victoriously, hinting that they were scared. But Xie Yu broke his plans and accepted the challenge, especially since there is a chance to win. But Ghostface advised him to have courage and not die before time. Xie Yu was not afraid and agreed to meet in half an hour, and they went their separate ways. In the meantime, the representative of the association approached the girl and asked her name. As she was paid for her help, She introduced herself as Tai Wu and explained that she didn't have any points to pay. Everyone wondered how a player could not have points, and Tai explained that she had actually come here to exchange items for points and save her brother. Xie Yu was surprised, since he had seen them together attacking him not long ago. The girl then told him that the last time she went hunting with her brother and fought against him, he had used all the points to help her recover, but was injured himself. If she told her brother she was heading here, there was no way he would let her go. The association representative wasn't going to forgive her fee. At the video of how pathetic she was, she decided to give her a discount. As payment, she could take some item from her. After that, Tai Wu showed the system and Representative Qin Han realized that nothing in her inventory was worth a penny. Although if one tried hard, one could get 500 points for them. Xie Yu was indignant that the association representative was going to rob this girl of every penny. Qin Han countered that their association has never been honest. But still, this girl has a way out. If she wanted to earn a lot of money, she should join the guys in the Casino of Fortune. Xie Yu was horrified by this suggestion, as he thought that it was a showdown between them and Blood Moon, and there was no need to involve another person in this game of chance for life. But Tai Wu had to agree, as her brother would not last long without help. So she asked permission to take part in this Casino of Fate. Jin Chan Association bets on the strength and luck of the player, using all the points as chips, even at the risk of losing their lives. It is because of this annoyance there is uncertainty. This is a game of chance. These are long-awaited projects for them. Every time they start the game, their association can earn a fortune. Hearing this, the guys realized why the association representatives were so zealous to involve them in this game. Then a door opened in front of them, and the representative invited them into the Casino of Fortune. Their association Jin Chang 4 major guilds, a 98-level leader. When the door finally opened, a golden toad stood before them. It turned out that the boss was level 98. If it was in difficulty mode, no one could defeat it. The Lord of Illusion only likes to play and trade things related to gold. The management of Jin Chang Association has already signed a contract with the Lord of Illusion, which says that he is forbidden to harm players. Xie Yu, after listening to the instruction, fearlessly headed into the room first. Ghostface was even surprised at his courage, and at the same time caustically asked behind his back if he was ready to say goodbye to his life. The representative of the association asked all the players to shut up before the competition and began to familiarize them with the rules. The Casino of Fortune consists of 2 parts. The upper part is the Wheel of Luck and the lower part is the battlefield. After the participants join, each side will choose a random player to spin the Wheel of Luck and the participant can win a prize of 100 points. If the participant is not satisfied with what they have gotten, they can spin the wheel again, but the point fee will be doubled when a reward is received. It is also received by teammates who can use the new reward in battle. After that, the whole team together with the teammates must kill the toad on the other side. The team that kills the toad first will be the winner, and the team that loses will lose everything and its members will die in the battle. The game will not end until one side is destroyed. Xie Yu asked the girl if she was really ready to fight, since all the events happening here had nothing to do with her. But the girl had no other choice. She was determined to do her best for her brother and make up for what she had done before. Shen Yunyao intervened in their conversation and resented the fact that no one asked her opinion about what was going on in their team. But Xie Yu countered that they were already friends, so they should help each other out. Besides, the strength of an additional player member wouldn't hurt them in any way. That's when the girl decided to give them a gift and gave them one valuable item. Meanwhile, their enemies were discussing the situation. Ghostface was advised not to be too careless and not to underestimate his enemy, but he did not want to listen to anything. After all the teams consulted, the representative of the association saw that they were ready. Then she announced the start of the game. All the players who came to the trading city got ready. The girl continued to speak into the microphone. She addressed the players who had come to the trading city. The casino game of destiny is open again. This is the start of a new gambling game. The Blood Moon Guild and its members Shadow Assassin and Ghostface, against the new players. It turned out that the game was broadcasted to the entire market and many people gathered to watch the broadcast on the screen with interest. In addition, the presenter also offered bets to the audience on who would win the Blood Moon Guild versus the unknown newcomers. The viewers knew the Blood Moon Guild well, so almost everyone bet on them, and the bets were quite high. Some of them were as high as 1,000 or even 2,000 points each. After the bets were placed, the illusion master had to move the players to the playing field. Xie Yu saw to his horror that he was transported to the Wheel of Fortune, the thing he feared the most. After which, he turned to his companions, informing them that he was relying on them in battle. Xie Yu didn't miss a moment and teased the guy, telling him that if he failed, all the blame would completely fall on him. The host noted that both teams seemed ready, and told them that the first round was starting and it was time to spin the Wheel of Luck. As soon as the players started spinning the wheel, they were deducted 100 points. The wheel contains supplies with no limit. Each item has no description, but white is the highest level, red is the middle level, followed by green and blue levels. Xie Yu consoled himself that after all this is a wheel of luck where whoever is lucky wins, and he had never lost in this yet, so he decided not to worry much. That's when he saw the Shadow Assassin's special skill. He can change his place in the slot with his abilities and wondered if it was cheating. Then the host announced that there wasn't much movement in the first round and the results for both sides were as follows. The red side earned a red level item that adds 50% combat power. As for the blue side, they received a strong green gem. This item can't be used in battle but can be charged for 10 points after the game, which is pretty good. Xie Yu had to admit that he was really unlucky right now, but isn't the Shadow Assassin's strength too much? The host explained to him that nothing could be done in this place unless authorized by the illusion master, but he could forgive the wheel again if he wanted to if he doubled his payment, and it wouldn't affect the other player in any way. The guy realized that respinning could change the results, but their points would then be used up faster. He made the decision to refuse, and had something in mind to find out. The hostess continued and announced that next was the combat portion where both sides could take their items right now, and Xie Yu disdainfully noted that this guy had gotten the worst item in existence in the first round. No sooner had she developed her thought than the battle started and the girl told Tai Wu that Ghostface was approaching, that they had a chance to attack first. Ghostface, meanwhile, was satisfied with the first round, and was also going to get the best of his enemies. He triggered a skill and a clone came from his back. The girl was shocked at what she saw. His power was to split into two. His clone contained half of his power. He could make clones with his power, so the girls didn't really have much chance of winning. Xie Yu, watching them from the sidelines, realized that they didn't have any advantages against their enemies. Ghostface meanwhile mocked and asked, did they think they would succeed? And then he and his clone started running and he said that they had no chance here and as long as they were losing, they would lose their points. And Xie Yu didn't really listen to what he was muttering and suggested to her partner to test their strength. She launched a fire tornado attack at the enemy. And the other girl added her petal energy and ordered it to bloom. And that huge tornado headed towards the enemy. But the face only laughed and used a claw of destruction. He drew his swords and just shattered the girl's magic, and the girls themselves were terrified. He electrified his sword and wounded Xie Yu. This was the first blood. The host immediately announced that the red team had successfully destroyed the first life. The Echidna Ghostface clone said that the results had already been recorded and they would enjoy the battle yet to come. Xie Yu made sure that the Shadow Assassin can find out where the wheel stops and thus he can choose his reward, and the Ghostface can double the power of any equipment it receives. If they both switch places, the power of the Ghostface will have a huge advantage. There is no way to target them as their abilities give them a huge advantage in the casino. But still, don't underestimate his own power. When the host announced that the first round was over and the blue side had lost a life, no one in the audience was surprised. As expected of newcomers, they are such nerds, and yet they dared to challenge Blood Moon with such luck, they thought. The second round started and the players on both sides started spinning the wheel again. Xie Yu jumped up realizing that he now knew where he should land. He also had a certain probability of knowing which area he needed to stand in. Based on the results of the second round, the Shadow Assassin received the red equipment, and the blue team green equipment. The blue team once again embarrassed themselves and received a solid green gem. The hostess suggested that the players add their bet and Xie Yu agreed. Just as he suspected that it was impossible to win in this game unless one bet on higher level equipment. The spectators started laughing. They didn't realize that with this guy's luck, he wouldn't win no matter how much he bet, and a second spectator added that it would make it more meaningful. He wished he would lose completely. so the red team who got the red outfit decided not to add. So what was now at stake was whether the blue team could win another round. But this time too, the blue team infamously hit the healing stone, which in a way has the same use as green gem. Xie Yu was nevertheless not going to stop and decided to add more. The hostess immediately notified and said that perhaps they would have better luck in this round. Could the blue team at least win the yellow gear in this round? Well, in this round, the team got the green color, and Xie Yu declined another offer to continue. The viewers were unanimous in their opinion that the blue team couldn't win by any means in this battle, while others suggested that if they bet on the red team, they could win back. Xie Yu asked his friends not to put all their efforts and just let his enemies win a few rounds. Yunyao and Tai Wu listened to the guy without argument. The red team was a little worried that they could probably be up to something, but they soon discarded that thought. Meanwhile, Ghostface once again made his clones and said that it was all useless. After that, the red team easily gained another point, while the blue team lost another point, so they were losing to them in both luck and strength. But Xie Yu didn't seem to be afraid of anything and was patiently waiting to move on to the next round. The hostess was describing what was happening. The blue team seemed to be calm. Their luck was yet to be determined. Perhaps they wanted to make an epic combo by making an incredible bet. And she announced the next round. Xie Yu from the blue team stepped on the wheel again and green fell out. He had 200 points taken off, but he stubbornly chose to continue. He asked to add another 200, then 400, then another 200 each and on and on. The guy only stopped when the blue side got the green equipment 10 times. He didn't realize, was it bad luck or good luck? Ghostface Aura on the other hand was very strong. He kept getting points. Therefore, the blue team wasn't that powerful and couldn't block his punches. The viewers were discussing what was wrong with that guy, why he kept getting green gear. Another asked if it was the same African Americans. It was the first time he saw those who got 10 green gear in a row. He laughed and said that even though they won't make much money from betting on the blood moon, but at least they won't lose. And the host announced the situation after the next round. It turned out that the blue side was in a bad situation, with only 2 lives and 1 green equipment. As for the red team, they didn't lose a single life. The result of this game already seemed to be predetermined. The red team was certain that the blue team was destined to lose in the last round. However, the blue team itself thought somewhat differently. The guy smiled and said that everything was under his control. He was sure that they would win in the next round, and this was heard by the host and was surprised that the blue team dared to say such words, but whether they actually had a chance was unknown. If they could step on the smallest part of the white area and gain the power of the Master of 1,000 Illusions, they could win the round, but so far no one had been able to do so in the last 100th round yet. The spectators thought that Xie Yu was some kind of crazy person because he thought he could win in this situation, even if he reached the white area. The Illusion Master could only take 10 lives on impact and he would definitely lose then. Ghostface was once again convinced that his opponents were up to something after all, and they made a decision with the Shadow Assassin to aim for the white zone in the next round. Although the Shadow Assassin wasn't quite confident in his abilities, it was decided to try until he succeeded. Looking at all of this, the girl decided to ask Shen Yunyao if Xie Yu's actions could be trusted, and the girl confirmed it. She herself was sure that Xie Yu really knew what she was doing. The hostess was surprised at the blue side's calmness. Did they really have a secret weapon that could change the outcome of the game? So she announced the start of the battle, and Xie Yu instantly pounced on the wheel. The results of the round revealed that the blue team got green again, and the Shadow Assassin got red equipment again. Xie Yu missed a bit and didn't hit the white zone, and the host wondered if this meant that the red team was targeting the white zone. Xie Yu and the Shadow Assassin started to add points. But nothing changed. The blue team kept getting green gear and the red team kept getting red gear, but both sides are not going to lose to each other. The hostess was surprised and said that after the previous rounds, adding extra bets to themselves would cost 6,400 points, but it looked like both sides had used up everything for this round. Xie Yu didn't think it would come to this. He wouldn't have any more points to add in the next round. So it was decided to summarize the round, and as usual the blue side got the green equipment. And then the presenter was surprised. The red team got the non-red gear. The Shadow Assassin touched the white side, which signified breaking the record of 100 rounds. The spectators who had bet on Blood Moon were ecstatic and were already mentally counting their winnings. The host announced that apparently the game was coming to an end and it was time to watch the illusion masters attack. Ghostface was satisfied with the shadow assassin's performance. He is quite reliable. Shen Yunyao and partner were horrified at this prospect. And Xie Yu suddenly asked, did they think he was destined to lose? He smiled caustically and ordered them to watch carefully. The guy showed the ghostly face a copper assassin that could only be used in the last round. It turned out that this copper assassin was given to him by Tai Wu when she put something in his hand before the competition started. This coin, according to the girl, could be effective during the fight. This talisman was from her brother who gave it to his sister to help her escape during danger. Ghostface and the anchor woman were shocked. Xie Yu called out for Tai Wu to go with him, and the copper assassin was already activated. The guy boldly moved towards the next fight.